if I can follow that up.
I was in the beginning moments of that. I was taken aback. I thought I want pretty twittery little bird song, and then this build up. Oh, hello!
It's a royalty-free.
We got your attention today, didn't we?
It's a royalty-free song from
great.
White Sand called "The Quest."
I know you had a topic, but I'm just going to leap right in and ask you a question
sure.
off the bat because I'm curious. Do you write to music? I think we've kind of sort of touched on things before.
I play music prior and after, but not during.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you do it just because your brain needs to clear its, like the RAM reset with
Nope.
the music, or do you use it as like pump up music and bring me out music, or what are you doing? Intros and outros with your brain?
Traditionally, especially since we're talking about for me movies, I will play whatever music I have pre-attached to this property in my head, and I just have sort of a playlist that I kind of rock it through.
Okay.
And it kind of builds the setting for me very well.
A lot of writers write to music.
Oh,
for
sure.
that reason.
Yeah. No, I just can't do it because screenwriting for me is so much dialogue. The dialogue is music. So one thing I will do, not during, but again, as a build-up too, I do have a handful of favorite dialogue writers. And if there's a scene I'm writing where I'm like, oh, this is a real Neil Simon type of thing here, I'll actually spin through a quick scene from The Odd Couple, Brighton Beach Memoir, or something like that, because that gets that rhythm going for me, and then I just kind of go from there. So
I have to blank my brain completely. I can't touch music when I'm ready to write.
No, I know. Yeah,
I can't even touch it until like I'm out and done, and there isn't any residual. Oh, and put this down. Oh, and one more thought. You get those little after rumbles when you're writing.
Sure. Yeah.
You're like, okay, done. Got to make dinner. And then I bring the laptop over where I stir a pot of noodles, and I burn both the manuscript and the noodles. You
do a lot. We have a lot of cooking. It's funny when we talk about writing with you. Writing and cooking are so close.
I had someone question the other day. They were baiting the story where I mentioned that the character burnt tea, and they're like, "That's not possible." I went, I've done it. It's. I mean, maybe burnt is not the word they would normally expect to be associated with. You can burn tea.
Oh, you totally can. Green tea, especially.
Yes, white tea. Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, that's probably even worse.
So delicate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, I actually, green
if you work really hard at it, I think you can also burn a nice black tea, too.
You can burn a lake. It's all possible. Interesting. Well,
but when someone's baiting, they obviously have to put a critical eye on things and say, did you mean to do that? Yes, I did. Yeah, I am that untalented in the kitchen. I am pulling from my life experience. But it goes down to word choice,
Word choice. Well, yes. And no, she's good. So for a topic today, I thought it would be really interesting. As a writer, people
we're digging into the toolbox. You got any sound
the toolbox? That's exactly it.
Rummage. I'm good at futzing stuff on the table here. I'll make some.
There you go. I mean, that's right.
Little.
Boom, boom, boom. There we go.
There we go. Fully artist, I am not.
Yeah, no, it's fun though.
I was gonna make a bunch of gaffes.
A plumber without a plunger. What is it?
What is the sound of one hand clapping?
That's right. No, I mean, there are some things, and it's not talked about that much. There are, as we both know, and certainly me, a million writing books on writing. They'll talk about how to get an agent. They'll talk about how to self-promote. They'll give you all those things, but there's not a lot besides of Strunk and White's usage. But even that's grammatical. No one actually gets into literary elements. I haven't seen like a literary elements in school, and that's kind of icky, and people kind of.
I mean, kind of like
the sexy
premise.
Enough.
The premise of the show is, take no advice. I'm like, who am I to tell you how to write? Because people do want to shy away from telling people how to make a voice, how to get a tone on the page,
right?
How to get a style.
Oh, I'm glad you said the word tone. That's number 20. After symbolism.
I do know something.
It's alphabetical.
Well, this is kind of a fun learning experience for me.
Well, there we go. If you walk out of here with,
a little spring in my step,
absolutely.
I know some things about stuff.
Well, let me. I'll read the 20.
Okay.
Stop me on anyone that you just like. Oh, I love that, and talk about. So
you can stop.
Okay. Well, all right.
My brain will just go.
Because otherwise, I'll just break them down in the next segment. But anyway, here we go. So number one.
Just pick one. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Number one, illusion. And people are going to be like, are you talking about like illustrations? Illusion? No. No. So this is the definition that I'm getting off of this particular website. An illusion is a literary device that basically, this is in bold, indirectly refers to external people, events, or things. analysis not bold, such as the real world or in another story. An easy way to remember the definition of an allusion is to think of the verb allude, as in you are alluding to somebody, you are referencing something else. An example of allusion for you people at home keeping score. With a deep frown on his face as he stormed through the Christmas market, Johnny looked like a real Scrooge. So talking about Johnny, we're alluding to Scrooge. Or talking about Scrooge, we're alluding to Johnny.
Yeah.
However you want to look
at it. And it's very interesting. You got to be careful when you use them because you're assuming something on the part of the reader. You're assuming a certain sort of knowledge.
They have Dickensian, they've been through a Christmas Carol. Yeah.
I mean, someone might not know who Scrooge is. They might not know. They might not get the reference. I guess the question is, boy, that's so buried deep in what I do that I probably don't even think about it.
I have a feeling a lot of writers
are that way. And I don't think most people do. I think that's why it's called out in this list. I guess the question would be, what are the bounds of what they mean by allusion? Like if you, they're not meaning if you take a quote from something and drop it in. Like I have a line from Faust in my manuscript for that Sherlock thing that I'm working on, that I've been, kind of hoping to get green-lighted, as it were.
Yeah.
And I don't give a translation. I give it in the German.
Oh, interesting.
Now, is that what they mean by illusion in that, or is that just something else entirely?
That sounds like something else.
Because it's used as an illusion because
you're alluding to something with that quote.
I'm using the quote to show what the character is thinking and how they think of a particular situation. But I give it in German. I give no translation.
I think that would...
People are like, everyone who's read this, the few people who baited it for me, have been like, where's the translation? I'm like, welcome to 2020 where you can Google it.
I was just going to say, Google Translate's our friend.
If you got the ebook, you highlight it and it'll automatically pull it up. I know. I tested it out to make sure.
Oh, sure.
Because the original Sherlock Holmes stories, which I'm emulating there because I'm trying to work with canon.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have given a translation. I mean, I've just recently, for fun, started reading Jane Eyre.
For
rereading.
fun.
Oh, I know. And I was like, gosh, what a depressing story. I got 6 chapters in the other night. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm sitting there and, covers pulled up under my chin, crying, going, I needed something happy. Oh my gosh, why did I do this to myself? But it's my high school version, the high school English class version.
Oh, interesting.
And so,
okay.
I mean, I was forced to write in it, so I wrote in pencil. And it's my, high school version of cursive, so it's
nice.
Like,
oh, absolutely.
It's clearly I'm trying to be legible, but not. And it's like tiny print, but all the French, there's so much French thrown into once Jane Eyre ends up being a governess for the little girl whose name escapes me right now. But there's just French.
Yeah.
And that was the thing in high schools. Did anybody look up the French? And we'd all go, no. This was in the late 90s. So, you didn't just go Google it. You'd have to actually try to figure out from a French dictionary something. Or maybe go to Half Price Books and buy the Cliff Notes, where hopefully they had it translated.
Absolutely.
It was like, how did you expect us to look this up? But that was coloring what the characters were. They were very carefully chosen quotes.
Yeah.
And yet they're so buried. So
I think you're in the ballpark of illusion there, but I think there's probably a different name for that. But maybe we'll come in from 2 through 9, 2 through 20
as an illusion too.
Right. I think
How far is that? Well, anyway,
we
just confused everybody because I'm confused too. So there you go. Look, we don't know anything. I went from I know something to
from 0 to 60. Funny you mentioned the next.
I'm not sure if I ever used that in any way other than.
So you've never compared to, like...
I don't like to drop pop culture into my stuff.
Well, your stuff isn't exactly pop culture friendly.
I do a lot of historical, so, I mean, if I'm going to
pop culture of the day, maybe,
But even then, I usually try to use English here, but I try to stray away from that because it's not my strong suit anyway, and it's a personal taste as a reader. Yeah. Personally, I don't like it necessarily when someone starts bopping to the songs of some... song from the 60s.
Yeah.
I dropped it in one short story, and every time I hit that, it's like, and the faint lyrics, and I'm like, ew.
Oh, okay.
It's just my own personal preference.
Yeah.
It's a tool. It's like pepper. You just toss it in for a little flavor.
Yeah.
If you've got a good use.
Yeah.
Some of them can be very tired. A lot of editors will hit you on an illusion and say, that's a tired illusion.
Right.
Like Scrooge.
Yeah. Right.
It's so pervasive in there that it's like, ooh,
Yeah, if you're going to use Scrooge, you better use it well.
You got to use it really well,
absolutely.
probably.
Funny you mentioned your Sherlock Holmes.
Which is funny because everyone knows more or less who Scrooge is, so it would be a useful one. But yes,
I suppose.
You were saying?
Yeah.
Saying?
I mean, you'd have. I was going to say your Sherlock Holmes. The next book on my nightstand after I finish this lengthy horror novel from the guy who wrote The Perks of Being a Wallflower. What's a long book? And didn't need to be. Little review there for you. Wonderful book, actually. I'm enjoying it. Is Sherlock Holmes and the Shadwell Shadows by James Lovegrove. It's a Lovecraft. It's Sherlock Holmes' Lovecraftian book. And
is that the one with the little on the little tentacle?
Well, yeah, of course, tentacles. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I think I just saw something.
I'm looking forward to. I leafed through it and read a few passages and. It's very exciting. I mean, just everything I read about, I was like, oh, this is going to be a blast. So, yeah, very excited for that. So I thought I would let you know and the readers know. And we have all 3 copies here at the Cedarburg Public Library. So, sell. Anaphora, or anaphora, depending on which country you're in, is a literary device that is similar to alliteration. Maybe we're going to get close to what you're doing. In the sense that it is a technique that relies on repetition. No, that's not what you were doing. The difference is that in bold, anaphora repeats the same word or phrase at the beginning of successive sentences. Used widely in rhetoric, examples of anaphoras can be found in many famous speeches.
I think I do that. So it's to me, it's just word rhythm.
Yeah, it is. And this is
because you're making, because I went to the store because I needed it. I don't know. That was a really bad example. Because I went to the store because I needed it.
Let's turn to an expert.
You do it for something more dramatic.
Let's turn to Dickens. Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Right. It was the age of wisdom. Right. So there we go. Yeah. So and in the meager...
Yeah, that can be done very cool.
Yeah, I think so.
And usually that is something that my editors and my line editors that I've worked with have been always like, yeah, when they see it. Because I don't use it often, but when I do, I'm always really making a point with it.
Yeah.
And what's really fun is, and this goes into just formatting of your prose, and kind of having an instinct of what you're doing and why you're doing it. Sometimes I'll break them up, and they're, it's like, perhaps.
Oh, sure.
I didn't realize that was song until I said it. But, it'll be like something, because because
Sure.
New paragraph because and then you're like, whoa! It feels like it's in bold with exclamation points without having it.
A book does that a lot. The Bible. The Bible has a ton of that.
Well, that's relying a lot of translate. That's a game of telephone. A lot of the times it is just the way it's translated, edited down, changed up.
Yeah. But someone decided, hey, this would drive the point home. Proverbs and numbers and all that.
To marketing tool. But I mean, you know what I mean? It's getting its point across very artfully,
absolutely,
very pointedly.
It's not a bad book.
Every word is being.
It's all right.
It's been chosen very carefully, even by the translators over time.
Sure.
Which is fun.
Except Gideon at the hotels. Yeah, it's just boring. I don't like those Gideon Bibles. I'm always excited when there's one in there, and I crack it open. I'm like, come on, guys, you can do better than this.
Ouch.
They don't mind. They know it. They're giving it free to hotels. Motel 6. Come on.
No. I mean, but translation was one of my favorite Laurie R. King books. And back to Sherlock.
Sure. Yeah.
Is Monstrous Regiment of Women.
Okay.
All of the books in that Mary Russell series. I love that one because she's got a female theologist, who is she's not even really that so much as she's a mystic. But Mary Russell is a theology major. That's her bread and butter. That's her, and it's really fun because pit that against Sherlock Holmes' analytical brain and woohoo,
right.
It's a good mix.
Absolutely.
But that book actually delves into it more than anything else because it really starts elevating, showing what Mary Russell knows and studied and can talk about. There's also, I think, Letter of Mary does that really well.
Okay.
But that's just a fun one as far as Bible translation discussions in literature.
Right.
It's a great thing. It's a book recommendation hour today.
Hey, that's valid on this. That's valid on these radios. Well, we're actually going to take a break, and we come back.
This will be like 6 months, guys. Sorry.
That's okay. We don't mind.
I like to come back to it every now and then.
But when we come back, we will. Where's my Heaven's Lullaby? Is a song taking us I don't know if you're using a lullaby on a radio show, but that's okay. We come back. We will talk about diction.
We had that very tense opening. This is
that's
nice.
right. It is diction, euphemism, and epistrophe. When we come back, that's like I don't know, some kind of cliffhanger. Heaven's Lullaby, the name of the song for our break.
Nice little waltz.
Rather nice, actually. Yes. It's on YouTube from Big Rice Piano is the name of the channel, and it's in the public domain. So, but there's a PayPal button on there, so you can donate to Big Rice if you like. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because that was nice piano music, something I can't get away from lately with my little film that I'm shooting. So I had a good day on Sunday, actually. Wonderful. We shot at the Stagecoach here in town, and God, it looked good. I mean, that's what's great about shooting in Cedarburg is everyone's like, man, you used to have quite a budget for this. I'm like, no, it's just sitting there. I'm just capturing it with my phone. So it just makes it look good. We're talking today about literary elements, things that you can...
tools and tricks and things. The things you learned about in school that you probably forgot or didn't know you remembered because you just folded it into your own voice.
Or didn't know you could use. I mean, that's nothing too. You don't even think, like, is that available to me? Yes, it is available to you.
Variation. But there's a device where you can start each one with the same word.
Absolutely.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's great.
It's useful.
Number 4 on
Sometimes
this list.
Sometimes you think, I'm being such a rebel. And you're like, no, you're actually, I was going to say that.
You're just employing a device, one that's been around for 300 years, but never mind.
You're just doing it well.
I skipped alliteration because everyone knows that one. That's kind of boring, so whatever. So we're going to go to number 4 here with...
I have a love-hate relationship with alliteration.
I join you in that, actually. Yeah. If done well, it's phenomenal, but you seldom see it done well anymore. I mean, who are the alliteration innovators of the day?
But the thing is, if you're doing it, it should be... just something it's a treat for the eyes, treat for the brain.
Right.
It's really not something you want to call out. If anything, like for me, for alliteration. Sorry,
no, it's good. No, it's good.
To me, it's an important one because it gets a bad reputation sometimes.
It does with me. Yeah. Well, then you know what? Okay, let me read what it is just in case so we can get the actual definition, and then an allusion. Oh, I'm sorry. Scratch that. We did that. Let's go to number 2. Alliteration. It is alphabetical, Jeff. A common literary element used in everyday life. Alliteration is when, in bold, words with the same sound or letter appear in the sentence, often consecutively. An example of alliteration are these classic book titles. This is kind of interesting. Titles.
Yeah, I hate it when the titles are alliterative. That's my bugaboo right there.
So, Pride and Prejudice, The Great Gatsby, Of Mice and Men, Sense and Sensibility, and Love's Labor's Lost. How dare they? Are the big ones there.
Well, so there we go. Actually, for a while, I was like, I'm allergic to alliterative titles because it's getting used a lot.
The fact that you just said I'm allergic to alliterative titles is funny. But anyway.
But no, actually, I use it in my prose infrequently but frequently.
Okay.
I'm I'd have to like comb through and look for one, but every now and then I'll find something that it's like, oh, we need a little bit of that spice again, a little bit of cinnamon in there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
cinnamon and spice. That's a good way of, that's what these tools are.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that they should
They're
be,
all little spices in your little kitchen. I've got spices in my toolbox.
If you're if you're writing fiction and not thumbing through your spice cabinet, you should be writing nonfiction. I would think almost. I mean, and you can actually do a lot of that nonfiction. Yeah, well, and that's true. And they're doing better.
Really should be spiced.
And they're doing better at that. Actually, nonfiction is going. It
depends on its purpose. It depends on its scope, its purpose, and its intended readership.
Right. Well, that's always know your audience.
Legal briefs are always going to sound a certain way.
Yeah, they will. You don't want to bring alliteration into legal briefs.
Or car manuals. They're always going to sound a certain way.
Absolutely.
Right. But no, I tend to use it very carefully because I do love a good alliterative phrase.
Okay.
And I'll do it because sometimes I'm aware of how things either look on the page or sound in the brain or sound coming out of someone's mouth. And the book's published before the audiobook guy gets it.
Right,
but
right.
I mean, every now and then I'll get something that I'll hear said out loud from my audiobook guy, and I go, ooh, yay. Because like I know how things sound in my head, and sometimes I just like seeing the repeated S's on the page, 2 words in a row, because you have a sound thing. And, it's interesting is I have a nephew who he's getting to the point now he's starting to read himself, sounding out the things on the page. And it's when you sound things out, either aloud or in your head, or have read to you, that's when that really works. Because it's a reward. It's a delicious little moment.
Yeah.
You get alliteration right, and you use it either really rarely or a lot even. You could do it on purpose. I mean, V for Vendetta. I mean,
right.
You can have fun with it. It's a fun thing. I think it gets a bad reputation unfairly. I mean, I'm staring at a Summer Sounds poster. Obviously, Cedar Creek.
Summer Sounds in Cedar Creek. That was fun. Let's do that again.
There's something to
it's melodic.
Power
it's melodic,
of the letters repeating. It gets you in a punch. Yeah. It's part of rhythm.
Yeah.
It really is a part of rhythm. And I've had people in editing go, on this one or on that one.
Yeah.
Because they know why I'm doing it. They know when I'm doing it, and it's I really, if I had realized what we were doing, I would have brought my computer and started looking for things. Because there are times that I actually,
I'm the one with the computer.
I went out of my way to use that here. She's pointing.
I've got,
tearing the place apart here.
It's going to be a very physical episode. It leads into number 4 very nicely, too, because we're going into diction, which is basically a literary element that's all about word choice. Right. Exactly.
Oh,
so, alliteration.
Did you mean to use the word burnt on your tea? Yes, I did. I had somebody actually ask if I meant to use the word thrill instead of chill recently they were betaing something. Yeah. And I think it was a thrill that shook his soul. I mean, I'm misquoting. I probably didn't say shook his soul. But in my brain, I think that's what I actually wrote. So, don't quote me on it, even though I think but they said, did you mean a chill? Because that would be more common. I said, no. Because to me, it was different from that. It wasn't an actual chill.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that every now and then that'll bite me when we get to the audiobook part of it. Because, you've got someone who's trying to both read, perform, and my audiobook guy, he loves to cold read. He doesn't read ahead. He doesn't read the book and then go back to record.
That's pretty interesting. Surprised. He wants the surprise in his voice to be there.
He wants it coming through. He wants the genuine read to come through. And obviously then he tries to emulate it or tweak it if we have things that, what he does is so hard. My gosh, I can't even imagine. I trip over myself all the time when I'm just talking, as you can tell. But I hate reading out loud. It just makes me so nervous. But things like that, where your brain expects one thing, and you did something ever so slightly different. And I chose thrill there because it looks like chill. Your brain thinks chill, but you didn't say chill. You said thrill, so you got all the added color to it.
Oh, sure.
And it was a surprise, and I love it when I'm surprised when I'm reading. That's my favorite books are the ones that say things that you think, huh? Fun.
Okay. Yeah.
That stretch language, that stretch what you can do.
Absolutely.
With it. Things that stick with you because there's power in them that you don't even know where they got it from. Well, let's tiny little quiet moments.
Let's dive deeper into diction here.
Yeah.
Alliteration. We have a fun show here. According to this website, it comes in handy when you're trying to show the reader a particular situation or encounter between characters. The word choice of a certain character. Word choice that they uses, will indirectly show the reader what a character is like and what type of social setting this character is in. Now, they break it down to 4 different types of diction for those of you taking notes at home. Here we go. Yes. Number 1, formal diction is when the word choice is considered formal. Go figure. It's typically used in situations to convey a sense of social class or education or in formal situations. Hence why we seldom use formal diction here on this show. So, number 2, informal diction is when the word choice is informal, more geared towards a casual conversation. Sure. It's typically used to convey a sense of familiarity, such as in a letter to a friend. Colloquial diction, which is words are used in everyday situations that are often different depending on the region or community. So obviously Irish literature and that kind of thing is Joyce and all that. Slang diction is when newly created trendy words or impolite words are used. Yeah, right. No, they just, and here
I can actually nail down the time and place of things. Right.
I'm going to give you a test. Can I test you? Okay, this is fun.
I didn't know there'd be a test.
So between formal, informal, colloquial, and slang. So if I say to you, "See you later," what's that? Informal, right? Cheerio.
Well, that'd be
right.
Yeah.
Peace out. Slang, exactly, and good day to you. Formal. So there we go. So that kind of breaks it down nicely.
All right. Here's a funny thing then is I just met an author the other day, and they were telling the group ahead of what they were trying to introduce what they were about to read. Put it, give us a setting and a tone, why they're writing it, why it matters to them, and then it was kind of prepping us, kind of like if you had a cover and a blurb or a book.
Yeah, sure.
You don't just cold read necessarily.
Yeah,
you can. That's fun too.
Oh, sure.
But she was giving us that, and I said, "Oh, I can't wait to hear what your voice is written down, because the way you talk is really, really juicy. It's got a tone and a style." Yeah. I said, "I feel like you went from hi, how are you, to performing mode, to telling a story mode.
Sure.
And it was already there before she read what she'd written on the page, and it was really fun.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, as I like to tell this fun little story way back from the first time the publisher had anything from me, and they did a big old assessment of, tone and style and characters and pacing and arc and everything, all within the publishing house. Just a typical assessment that places will do. Where are we at? Where's this manuscript? What do we have here? What's this author like? What do we have? What toes don't we step on? Where do we push? Where do we not?
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I don't know if I've told this story before on here, but someone had a fun little comment that said, "Author sure knows her way around a thesaurus." And Penny, who at Schuyler, the gal I love to work with, my editor, she stepped in and made a comment on the comment and said, "That's how she talks." And it was like, thank you for standing up to me on that. I mean, I actually had a really weird encounter. I mean, I was always that dork. I was always that kid. And it was probably because of what I read, what I watched. You are a little bit, you are what you eat.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Absolutely. And so I internalized that. I mean, again, I imprinted like a little baby duckling on Sherlock Holmes at the age of 8. And, what does that do to a kid?
Well, let me tell you.
Who knows? But I had a thing where it was raining, and I was in a social situation where we're all coming in from the rain, and I was, it was one of those, your shoes squish a little, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so saturated." And I had someone go, "Look at, you're kids, you're playing, you're hanging out," and I don't know, it's probably preteens, somewhere in that age, and I got this curled lip look of, "Really? Why don't you just say, 'I'm wet'?" I'm like, "Because that doesn't cover it. That's not right.
I don't feel wet.
I don't
feel wet. I feel saturated."
And it was, some people look at that and they go, "Oh my gosh, she's arrogantly reaching for a $10 word when a 50-cent word will do." And for me, I'm like, "Oh, but I love to chew on these bountiful words."
That conversation is...
It's my jam, my jelly, and I'm sticking with it. And
that conversation is going on quite a bit with books. I mean, you hear, like when people I hear the defenders of the Grishams and the Pattersons and all that, and believe me, they're that's all. That's not 5-cent words. We're actually down to 2-cent words mostly, and it is fine. I mean, it's because the thing is,
if that's how people speak, if that's what people want, great. And it's interesting is I just had this discussion because again, I like to pointedly do things wrong all the time. Are the books I'm writing currently to market? Not in the least.
Yeah.
My favorite fantasy stuff's at least 30 to 40 years old at this point.
It's an interesting answer to that question because everyone expects, what about sales? Aren't you interested in sales? Aren't you interested in going in for the kill? Aren't you interested for taking? And you're not.
No, because I want to do what I want to do and the way I want to do it because it's what I like. And you know what? I like other things.
Yeah, right.
And other people like other things. Sure. And those things are great. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them.
This is what you do.
This is what you do. This is what I want.
Absolutely.
And if I move the needle at all, cool. If I have 5 readers who go, "Oh my gosh, I get what she's doing," great. But because my husband had this discussion with me, he's like, "You realize you're basically from your tiny, tiny little toehold in the world trying to move the needle on entire readership. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to find the people who still listen to vinyl. I'm trying to find the people who like to light candles and wear cloaks and do whatever. I like the people who want to march their own beat.
She wore a cloak to last week's episode,
yes,
folks, just so you know.
I've been known to walk around town with a Victorian top hat because I like it. And it fits my head really well. Ooh.
It would be hilarious if others followed suit, though. I mean, it'd be remarkable.
Why won't they? Right.
Well,
why not?
I mean,
or find your tribe. We're out there.
My bald spot will not support a top hat; it'll fall right off. But
it's interesting. Yes. Not just any top hat will do. It has to fit your face, shape your head. There's a profile to it.
I got a weird head, man. I got a strange.
They're mostly custom. I mean, a really good one's custom. Well, anyway,
I have a weird head and I'm broke. Okay.
And here we have Top Hat Talk today.
Well, that's actually a good way to sign off because we've come to an end of this episode and we got through four. No, we got through four. But that's okay because I like the fact that one thing I love about shows is that you actually, in the middle of this show, we have a series in the middle of the show. So we're going to pick this up next week because it obviously was low-hanging fruit.
Do you want to give them a 4-pack preview so that they know which ones to tune into and which ones of us to ignore because we blather? I blather, I know.
Feel free to do some pre-research for next week's show when we talk about euphemism.
I didn't know there'd be a test. I didn't know you'd have homework. Woo!
And we'll talk about epistrophe, which I'm not actually that up on myself. Flashbacks, which is in the screenwriting world, poison. I'm told if I have a flashback, I might as well just throw it right in the circular file.
I know someone who writes incredibly good books who uses flashbacks from almost every single novel.
Absolutely.
And it's like, it's well done.
Yep. Every time someone tells you there's a screenwriting or writing rule, you say, "Oh, you really? Well, let me gather those up so I can break them all." Foreshadowing. And big fan of that. Exactly. And hyperbole, which is what our listeners have all the time about us. So there we go.
Hey, if nothing else, make them laugh.
Let's end on a song called Ultramare by Ludovico Einaudi. I loved saying that. That was the most fun I'm going to say it all day today. Thanks for listening, everybody. Another pretty song. Next week, we're back. Promise.